Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. The Hey Chaplain podcast brings you stories and wisdom about life in law enforcement, giving support and encouragement to those who wear the badge. Today I'm talking to Major Ryan Miller from the Overland Park, Kansas Police Department. Ryan just returned home a few months ago from the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. The National Academy is an executive leadership training program for law enforcement professionals, and Ryan is going to give us a look inside to see what the NA is all about. Listen to what he says about the selection process, the weekend field trips, what an average day of classes looks like, and the physical fitness tests and requirements. You especially will want to hear about the famous Yellow Brick Road obstacle course. If you think your career might take you to the top levels of law enforcement leadership, the FBI National Academy may well be a part of your preparations for that goal. Here's Ryan Miller. Ryan, I'm glad you're here today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So you just got back from the FBI National Academy. I'd like to hear, everything about it. I want to know, how it works and what it is and that kind of thing. Because people confuse that with training to belong to the FBI, and that's a different thing. So what is the FBI National Academy?
The FBI National Academy is a law enforcement executive leadership curriculum. It's basically college for a semester. It was founded in 1935, and its intent is to bring law enforcement executives, leaders, bring them all together to learn leadership concepts from the FBI, but also to learn from each other. And I would say that it's 50-50. You learn as much from each other as you do from them.
So it's at Quantico. So you're on campus with the FBI, and
Yes.
the FBI is teaching, but you're also, you have all these different agencies and departments from all across the country and internationally typically too. And they all come together and it's this high level training.
Yes, they have former agents that are instructors, but they also have hired other experts in their particular fields and hire them to the staff, to the faculty, and they teach as well. So you may have someone that has a whole career of being an agent and investigative background, or you might have someone that is a former reporter in major cities that is able to teach a media class.
Oh, wow.
Never was an agent, but they're an expert in that field, so the FBI brings them in to do that kind of thing. Like the PT instructors are experts in their field, but they weren't agents.
Okay. So who gets to attend this? I mean, what kind of people are attending the FBI National Academy?
Yeah, it's generally law enforcement leaders aimed towards or trajecting towards executive leadership of some kind. So it doesn't mean they're the CEO of their organization, but it might be some type of senior command. They'll send lieutenants, majors, deputy chiefs, chiefs. There were some chiefs in my class.
Okay.
And so that's who attends, those that are trajecting towards executive leadership.
Yeah, people who are going to be on the team or in the top position to lead an agency or department. This is kind of grooming them toward that kind of responsibility.
Correct. Right. And not necessarily that they are trajecting toward being a chief or a sheriff or a director, but they are headed towards senior command.
Okay.
The executive group of their organization.
Okay, how do you get selected for that? It seems like a lot of people would be ambitious career-wise and want to tap into something like this. So how do you get selected?
Well, it starts with the want to, right, on the employee's part, or the member's part, that you're willing to, what it is. So you're going to leave your family for 3 months and leave your organization for 3 months. So you have to be willing to do that. Once you have made that decision, there's an application process with the FBI, but you also have to be supported by your organization. They have to be willing to send you. That's really where you have an idea of the trajectory of your career.
Right.
If they're passing you over, that means they're not really looking for you to be that person. But if you're being selected for that position, then that's your support. Then once you get through the application process, it's signed off by your chief and that kind of thing, then you go to the FBI, and they run background checks. They run your application through, whether it's your field office or Quantico's running their different portions of that process. And then you go on the waiting list at that point. Once you get through all that, you go on the waiting list, and you start to get an idea of, I might be 4 years out, 5 years out. I was on the waiting list for 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
COVID helped a little bit of that, extended that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I applied in 2016, and here I finally get to go at the end of 2021. So we have people in Overland Park. They are on the waiting list. My dad waited until he was a major in his organization to go. But we also had people in class that waited 3 weeks. They got shoulder tapped and sent out the door, and they went.
Well, there's probably some variety in ages too, because I mean, you're assuming if you're on a track for executive leadership, you think that's going to be just older officers, people who are a little more advanced in their career, but you might have some younger. How young were some of the people in your class?
The youngest was 37.
Okay.
So not real young.
Okay.
Nobody in
young.
their 20s.
All right.
The average age was 44, so I was the exact average age.
Okay.
So a lot of lieutenants and captains, a handful of majors, a couple of chiefs.
Typically, there's international students, right?
Yes.
Did that happen in your class because of COVID?
Well, there was. So the class is normally 260 with, I think they maybe run almost 100 internationals or 50 internationals, something like that. But there's a lot. This time we only ran 130, and there were only 2 internationals.
Oh, wow.
And they were both stateside already. So they weren't.
They were already in the country.
They were already here.
Okay.
One worked for Spain and one for the UAE, and they were already stateside working in embassies or in organizations that were here. So normally there's 4 classes a year.
Okay.
And Kansas City gets 4 seats per class, per session.
Okay.
But that's all of Kansas City. That's the entire Kansas City field office region. So it's not just Overland Park or KCMO or KCK or Independence, the bigger ones.
It's the region.
It's the region. It's the pick from everybody. My class, there was one from Mission and one from Overland Park. This class that's going, I think there's 2 from KCMO, 1 from Olathe, and I can't remember the 4th one. So it's all from the region, and it's spread out and varying size agencies.
So your 4 slots, only 2 of them actually were filled for your class?
For my class, because it was cut in half.
Because it was a smaller class.
Yeah. Everybody got half.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you know the other person from your area?
Yeah. He was a friend of mine from the academy, and he works in Johnson County, so it was fun.
Somebody you'd known for a long time.
Oh, I have known him, for 22 years, and so, it was nice to have someone there too, because you're not looking around for help or someone to eat with or something like that. It was a good time to reconnect with him and spend a lot of time. He's a great guy.
So what were your weekends like?
Weekends were packed. So,
really?
So I was there for 11 weeks. The only 2 weekends I didn't do something were the first weekend, as I was basically just trying to move in, and the very last weekend, as I was basically trying to move out. Exactly.
But they filled up the rest of the time.
Yes. The weekend is all about the trips. It's all about going somewhere.
Okay.
So I went to New York and had a planned out, I paid for it, planned out, scheduled trip where we were just Times Square, NYPD headquarters, World Trade Center area, the museum, the memorial, all of that stuff. New York PD brought some people in and just had this wonderful meal.
Now, how many people out of your class, like what percentage of your class went on that trip?
That trip, I think there was like 7 or 8 didn't.
Oh, okay. Go. Like almost everybody.
Yeah, everybody goes to the New York trip. Yeah. You know about the New York trip before you ever even leave.
Okay.
And it's kind of expected.
What are some of the other trips then?
So they went to Philly, and I didn't go to that because I've been to Philly recently, and I came home that weekend. But they went to Philly. We went to Gettysburg, which New York was awesome, and it was fast, and it was just jam-packed of 2.5 days of stuff. However, I feel like I was the most enriched and fulfilled by going to Gettysburg and the tours and the leadership lessons that I learned, and about the strategy and the concept of distance and time. And we think of wars as taking up entire countries, but Gettysburg is taking up hills and counties. Yeah. It was really a pretty intimate battle. And so you learn those things, you learn the leadership strategies, and it was wonderful. Then I went to D.C. like 4 times.
And that's pretty close. I mean, D.C. is just up the road a bit from
depending on the traffic, it might take you 30 or it might take you an hour and a half.
Okay,
but
sure.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like for us here would be driving across town.
Right,
really.
Right.
So went there, went to Norfolk, and went on a submarine.
Oh, wow.
And that was about a 3-hour drive, but totally worth it. Stood right in front of an aircraft carrier. You know, Norfolk's the largest naval base in the United States.
Yep.
So I felt like a kid, you know, I'm just looking at all these ships, and went on a submarine and learned that I could never do that.
Yes.
You know, 1, I'm too tall. 2, those guys are underwater for anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months.
Yeah.
And never surface.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So yes, the trips are a big deal, and you might only go with dozen or 20 people. Usually it's at least 3 or 4 cars worth, or you might be on 2 coach buses and everybody's going.
Right.
So the trips are important.
So are they all elective, or are some of them like a mandatory thing through the National Academy?
There was only one that was mandatory, and that was to D.C. to the African American Museum, which was very fascinating. Learned a lot. The rest were all student-led, student-organized. The FBI kind of helps you a little bit. You know, they let you bring the buses on campus, and they want you to do them, but they don't pay for them.
Right.
So you pay out of pocket, or your department pays for stuff. And, and it varies from department to department. But yeah, it's the kind of the funny catchphrase for the NA is it's the most expensive free training you'll ever go to. you spend several $100s to do these trips and different things, and you don't want to miss them because it's a once in a lifetime experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because I wouldn't go to New York and do that by myself. I'd take my family with me.
Right.
So this is the one opportunity I could go to New York, not have my family with me, which keeps the cost down.
Right.
And it's scheduled. And I got backstage passes because you're there with the police.
Yeah.
You know, and to do all these things that there's no way you'd ever get to do those outside of that context.
Yeah, that one opportunity.
Yeah. So you gotta pay the money.
Right.
You gotta do it.
Yeah.
And so yes, the trips are absolutely a part of it that are not on the syllabus. Right.
Right.
It's not in the program.
But it is part of the experience.
It's absolutely part of the experience, and it's not something you skip. Yeah.
And then what were the days like, Monday through Friday?
On Monday, it's college. So you go to breakfast in the cafeteria. Class starts at 7:30. We had 2.5 hour block. You go to that, then you'd go to the next class, go to lunch in the middle of it, come back from lunch, finish class, go to the next class.
Right.
And so you had 3 classes a day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
And what types of classes?
Essentials for law enforcement executives. There's organizational change, counterterrorism, media, emotional intelligence. There's probably 20, 25 classes to pick from. And those classes were cut in half too.
Right.
The menu of classes were cut in half because there just weren't enough students. So they took the most popular classes and let us pick from those.
Okay, so that was my next question. Is if everybody was taking the exact same classes, but there's not. You apparently can pick and choose.
You enroll, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to pick from 3 different categories, and one of them is executive leadership. Then you have an electives group, and then you have a physical fitness group that you can pick from.
Okay.
So you have to pick a certain number from each of those 3 categories, and then that's what shapes your schedule.
If you were on a particular career track, you wouldn't have to sit through a class that had nothing to do with that. I mean, you could have adjusted and kind of picked something that was more pertinent to your career.
Right.
Okay.
So like you only have to pick one executive leadership class, but I took 2 because I needed master's level. So they give you master's level credit, or they give you bachelor's level or undergrad level credit.
Right.
And so that kind of has a formula in there as well. What are you trying to do with your degree or your college credits that you get from there? People think that, they don't even grade your papers out there. You just got to turn something in with some ink on it. No, they grade your papers every day. You get a percentage at the end. You get a letter grade.
It is real academic work. Yeah.
I got 9 hours of master's level credit coming out of there that I can get from University of Virginia, which is where I'm getting my master's from now.
Yeah.
So yes, it's real.
Yeah.
And UVA is the number 4 law school in the country, and the ones before that are all Ivy League schools.
Right.
So the FBI has attached themselves to a very good school, who then sanctions the type of work that they do.
Right.
So it's real.
Right. It looks good on the transcript for sure. Right. So you're in classes all morning and into the afternoon. What does the rest of the day look like?
So then you go to lunch, class, and then generally a lot of people go to dinner, go to the cafeteria for dinner, or you might go down and work out on your own, depending on if you worked out in class, or they have a fantastic fitness facility. So I'd go work out right out of class. I'd just walk right down to the gym, work out, and then go to dinner from there. And then in the evening, it's up to you. It's totally on your own, and that's when you get your homework done, of course.
Right.
A lot of ball games. I was fortunate the Chiefs played on prime time a lot, so I was able to I had a lot of that.
Right.
Funny side story with that is, being from Kansas City in Central Time Zone, the games are usually over about 10-ish, right? Well, they're not over till after 11. Sometimes our games are on till 11. Chiefs Monday Night Football is on till 11. Theirs on till midnight.
Right.
6:30 is still 6:30 the next morning. So I was kind of tired there for some of those weeks where the Chiefs were playing late, or KU was playing late, or the baseball playoffs were on and they're on late.
Sure.
So the adjustment to Eastern Time Zone was an adjustment, but that was your evening time was up to you, and again, getting your homework done, hang out with some of the people, get to know them. Whatever it might be, but there was plenty of time for all kinds of things to do.
And you said some of the classes, or a section of the classes, were physical, PT kind of things.
Yeah. So physical fitness is just a huge part of what the FBI is trying to do, because they're trying to capture the whole person, right? So fitness is a huge part of that, and their intent is to whip you into shape while you're there.
Right.
But because of that, you have to come in shape. And so a little bit of background on that is, you have to take a test during the application process. You have to run a mile. And for men, it's 10 minutes or less. And for women, it's 11 and a half minutes. Mm-hmm. And the field agent standing right there at the track with the clock running, and you're running a mile run.
Yeah.
So then when you get there, in the first week, you have to run that mile again. Mm. And if for some reason you don't make it, then you get sent off onto another fitness track from everybody else that did make it, because they're trying to get you in shape to be able to rejoin the group.
Right.
So then class, we would all be in class together. So you have fitness class twice a week, just like everything else. But then on Wednesdays, you would have the physical training challenge, or the PT challenge.
Okay.
Would be on Wednesdays. And if you haven't passed your mile, then you really couldn't participate in the PT challenge. Well, the PT challenge links you to the Yellow Brick Road, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So you have class time to get in shape, you have time to work on yourself after class, and then you have these challenges to kind of try to keep up.
Right. I've heard people go to the National Academy, and that was the most fit that they were in their mid-career. I mean, maybe not as well as they were when they were young, but in their 40s, that was the most fit. They lost 30 pounds or whatever. I mean, getting ready for it and then actually being there was really, really good for them physically.
Yeah. We had one guy, a chief from a city in the Midwest, lost 140 pounds just to get there.
Oh, wow.
Just to get in shape to get there.
Wow, that's life transforming.
Yeah. And he worked his way through the whole thing, but you're right, it's transformative.
Describe your experience with the PT. You're a pretty fit guy, especially for a guy in his 40s. You're a good athlete, but what was that like?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was even being a guy that's in shape, and there's always someone better than you. And I didn't go out there trying to set the world on fire, but I did have goals, fitness goals of what I wanted to do, try to transform, get a little stronger. Other people are going out there trying to work on their cardio or their endurance and things like that. And then there's people out there that are just gazelles, can run all day long. I'm not trying to keep up with them. So my goal was to work out every day. Funny story is, at first I thought, I feel pretty good. I'm going to do 2 a day. I'm going to do the old 2-a-days. I did that for about 3 weeks, and I noticed I was breaking down. I was getting injured. Things were hurting. I couldn't sleep very good because I was so sore. Right. And then I backed up. And they tell you at this age and at this point in your life, you can't do that anymore.
Right.
Recovery and sleep is just as important as whatever you did in the gym. And so when I backed it off, sure enough, the injuries started going away, the healing started happening, I was sleeping fine, I felt good, and just followed their plan, and it worked really well. So I met my goals while I was there, and I would say it's the best shape I've been in since college. People lost weight, but also there were people that didn't take it serious, that just did the absolute minimum. That people, the instructor would turn their back and they'd do it half speed.
Right.
So if you want to go out there and blow it off and just go through the motions, you can, because they're not like a coach in high school where they're yelling and screaming at you.
No.
They know they're dealing with people in their 40s and 50s who are just going to do what they want to do. A third of the class, I'd say about a third of the class were competing. Those of us up front were trying to win.
Right.
And however, if you didn't, okay, we are going to. As long as you finish it, you're getting your yellow brick at the end, right?
Right.
But then there were others that were just trying to get through it, who were working on themselves, that had a little bit further to go in their fitness, so they're just trying to do what their body can let them do.
Right.
And then probably another third, maybe a little less than that were just going through the motions, trying to get it done, and they were just there for the class part of it.
Right.
And just, weren't trying to get better, but just trying not to get worse.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, we've alluded to it a few times, this yellow brick road. What is that?
Yellow brick road is exactly what it is the final PT challenge at the end of the class. It's in the last week. It's in the same week as graduation.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because you go to this prestigious National Academy school, and you're going to get graduate level credit or undergrad credit, and you might walk out of there with a degree depending on where you're at. Big deal, right? But what really matters is whether or not that yellow brick is sitting on your desk when you got back. And so that sets up what it is exactly is a 6-mile run. Basically the first 3 miles are a obstacle course. It's the Marine Corps obstacle course, because Quantico is on a Marine Corps base.
Okay. So
it's their obstacle course. And what they don't tell you is that the first 3-mile obstacle course, which you think is kind of tough, is downhill. They're scaling walls with ropes, and you're doing things. You're kind of going up and down, but generally it's going downhill towards a creek bed.
Okay.
Well, what goes down in a run must come back up. And so the back 3 miles is almost all uphill.
Oh, wow.
To some of it, which you're just trying not to stop. It's that steep. And so the obstacle course is pretty fun. You kind of bunch up together. You're helping each other out. It's fun. It's cooperative, trying to help people get over the wall.
Right.
Putting your hand down and letting them step on your hand so you can boost them up over and stuff like that. So it's fun. And then
also that last half.
You kind of get bunched up a little bit, so you might get a little break from the run. And so you feel great. 3-mile run, and you're 30 minutes or 45 minutes into it. You're like, oh, yeah, I got plenty of energy. And then you turn the corner, hit the gravel road, and it opens up, and you look up. And when up goes all the way to the sky, you can't see the top. You're thinking, oh, boy. And, that's where it catches up to you.
Why is it called the yellow brick road, though?
There are literally some bricks along the way that are yellow, and not real sure how they got to that. Never heard the story.
Was it like, I guess I don't have a clear concept of the terrain. Is it wooded?
Yes.
Okay.
It's all wooded. Even the road that you run back on, the gravel road, is through the woods. But the obstacle course is definitely through the woods. So so
they've painted rocks and stuff to mark the path?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what we're talking?
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay.
I think they just grabbed onto a theme.
Okay.
Because like we talked about those weekly challenges, they'll have the Wicked Witch is dead, or the Wicked Witch run. They'll have the Scarecrow run. They'll have all these.
Isn't that cultural appropriation? Do you feel offended as a native Kansan that they're talking all this Dorothy and Wizard of Oz stuff?
No, I thought it was pretty cool, actually, because the East Coast doesn't even know where Kansas is.
Right, it's somewhere they fly over
exactly.
in their jet. Right,
yeah. And so they had all these Kansas and Wizard of Oz themes, so that was kind of neat. And people recognize it and would tell the 2 Kansas guys, "Hey, you know what this is, don't you?" Yeah, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, you do these challenges, and everything is designed to get you ready for this 6-mile run, because there are people in that class. There's no way they're running this yellow brick road at the beginning of this class.
Right. They're going to have to work up to it.
They worked up to it.
Right.
And the challenges were good because it's team camaraderie. You work together. A lot of it is partner based. You'll have to push a 100-pound sled for 50 yards, but your partner can help you. So at 25 yards, you switch off and you do a lot of things together, and you cheer each other on, and you're in groups, but you're not in groups, and you're with everybody. You might have a running group, but then everybody's out there, and your group goes first, but then by the time you're done, you're cheering everybody that's coming in. So you're going through this trial and these struggles as a group, and so it's building you up and networking and getting to know people and that kind of thing. Okay. There was a female commander from New York Transit, and I tell you what, she was a really good athlete. She's in her 50s, but you could tell in her younger days she was something. And she was just the most positive, influential cheerleader,
like encourager.
Yeah, you'd hear her yelling from across the field, "Come on, Ryan!" And I would just feel like all of a sudden I got this extra energy because she's yelling at me, "You can do it! Keep on running! You're almost there!" And her name was Monica. She was a wonderful woman.
Yeah,
and boy, she was. And then you'd run by her, and she'd high five, and then she'd start yelling at the next person, "Come on, Jeff!"
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of thing, little things like that where you're encouraging someone, and you never know what level of your encouragement is for somebody.
Right.
All she had to do was yell at me, and all of a sudden I kick it up a notch.
You told me a story before we recorded. You're a good athlete. You were in that competitive group, but there were some who didn't need any extra help. They were doing just fine. Yes. Can you tell me that story again?
Yeah, there was a couple of guys in particular. One of them was the youngest guy in the class. Great kid. I say kid. He was 37 years old. He's only 7 years younger than me, but super nice guy, good athlete, runner, and but definitely younger than everybody else. And we were on the Yellow Brick Road. So the Yellow Brick Road is broken up into 3 sections. So the first section, which is the slowest group, they go down first. And then that's all based off your mile time. Okay. And then the second section is the medium group, which is obviously the biggest portion of the class is in that second group. And then you got the third group who were anybody that ran a 720 mile or less was in the third group. Well, they go last because then everybody kind of comes in at the same time that way. Sure. And so I was right at the 720 break, and so some of the guys I had kind of connected with more than others were in that second group. So I was like, well, I'll just run with you. And so the young guy, he's in the last group. So I started at the back end of the second group. So I'm just a couple of minutes ahead of the front end of that third group. Right. And you're making progress, right? I'm making progress. I'm passing the other groups, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm getting through it pretty fast. Sure enough, here, and we're going to, this is the uphill portion that I talked about before. So we've already done the obstacles. All of a sudden, he comes running by me, and he just waves at me. "Hey, Ryan, how's it going?" And here I'm thinking I'm doing great, but struggling, and he's full speed. Blows right by me with a smile on his face, and he just runs up the hill. And extra air to talk while he runs by. Checking on me. How's things going? And just right up the hill. I was like, see, there's nothing I can catch up. I'm not trying to beat that guy. Right. I know my limitations. Good for him. Good for him. Right. Yeah, we'll see at the end. That's awesome. So after the Yellow Brick Road, at some point, there's a graduation. Yes, that's a formal graduation. It's in the auditorium, big auditorium, and the actual director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, he comes down. Oh, wow. He speaks. Fortunately, it goes pretty quick. But, yeah, we're all in there together. And a couple of speeches, elected class speaker gets up there and talk. Your family has come in. Yeah, it's an opportunity for family to come out and see you graduate and that kind of thing. Yeah, which is really neat. I wanted to make sure my kids saw it. So one of them was able to come out. My wife was there. My parents were there. And otherwise, you can live stream it and watch it at home. Right. And but, yeah, you get after the speakers, you get in line and you walk up there. The director of the FBI hands you your diploma. You shake hands, walk off the stage, a couple of closing comments, and after that, it's pack your stuff and get out. We got another class coming in. That's right. Thanks for being here. See you later. Right.
Okay, why should somebody take advantage of this and go to the National Academy?
Well, there's the overt, and then there's the less obvious. So I'll just give you one of the less obvious ones. It's placed in your career at that particular time with the intent of giving you a break from life for just a little bit.
Okay.
We're all generally in our 40s, and probably have a family, probably kids are a little bit older, a little bit longer married, or on your second marriage, or something like that. Life has gone on now for 40 plus years.
Right.
And so it's at that particular time with the intent of giving you a break from your life, whether it's family, career, whatever it might be. And you go away and you commit to it, and you're there. You're in the moment. It allows you to recharge.
Okay.
Right? So I'm away from my wife for 3 months. I miss her dearly, so I can't wait to get back to her.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back to my kids.
That's not a bad thing to have in your marriage.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I can't wait to get back to church and see everybody at church and that kind of thing. I'm ready to get back to work, so it recharges my batteries. Projects were cleaned up. New projects were started. So 3-month gap allows you to go back to work and to kind of have your batteries recharged, and now you have new perspective and new ideas.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
Fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Whatever change might have happened while you were there is like, oh, wow, I walked into this or that and the other. Mm-hmm. And so it's designed for you to take a break from life, and especially take a break from your career for a little while. Now, the obvious benefits are you're getting graduate level classes, undergrad classes, so you're working towards your degree. But most importantly, you are networking and you're learning from other leaders that have had this problem before that you're now having, so they have solutions. You're talking to instructors that have taught this for 15, 20 years, and so they've heard other solutions from other people, and so you're hearing all these ideas and learning from each other and people that you respect that are in the moment that you can go, you don't say, well, what do you know? Well, they know what you know, and they just had a different perspective or a different region of the country or a different region of the world.
Right.
And here's how they did it, and here's what they're allowed to do. So the benefits of it's formal education, it is that. It's in my opinion, it's much easier to be a 40-year-old going back to college than it is to be a 20-year-old that's distracted with partying and finding a spouse and where am I going to work? You don't have all those distractions, so you can really concentrate on your work, which means you can really learn something from your research and your papers and things like that.
Right.
And then you're getting skills and you're getting knowledge of things that are directly applicable to your career, to your position, because you pick the classes.
Right.
You're trying to pick something that will help you. My most beneficial class to me, they were all very good. The best one for me was a seminar on managing the law enforcement image. Well, that was media, dealing with the media, social media, how to present your police department in the best light in public.
Right.
What you look like, branding of your department, all the way down to your logos and your badges and what do you look like on social media. And
which podcast to go on.
Which podcast to go on. Yeah, so there was some talk of that, I mean, from the big obvious stuff of what to say and how to say it, which we talked mostly about that kind of thing, and the messaging strategies and things like that, all the way down to how you set the background on a picture that you're going to take for social media. How much information are you trying to put in a picture?
Right.
What do you put out on social media? What do you talk about in a press conference? You get ambush interviews where it's the chief is getting out of his car just trying to go inside and someone rushes a microphone to your face. That was an incredible class. Here's what the media wants to know. Here's how to control that. Here's how do you do a press conference, an interview, a hard topic.
Right.
Oh, the class was amazing. It's a small class because you don't really have to write any papers, but you're getting up and practicing, and you're going to stand up in front of the group and get asked hard questions and go through scenarios and be presentable in appearance and that kind of thing. And it was a great practice, or a great exercise, a great class.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you're not going to get that anywhere else. One of those classes where every day you go, you're going to learn something, and you focus on everything they say.
Right. You
Yeah.
just gobble it all up.
It all up. Right.
So if you're someone who has heard of the National Academy, kind of interested, think you might want to go, and you do aspire to maybe be in executive leadership, to be a police chief or something someday, how helpful is the National Academy specifically? I mean, is it really prestigious, or is that really high on your resume, or can you describe that for me?
Sure. That is, I would say, and I'm not being biased because I'm the one that went there, the FBI National Academy is probably the premier law enforcement bullet on your resume. Okay. Now, there are other good ones, and I don't want to slight the other. There's Northwestern Staff and Command, highly academic, outstanding school. You're going to learn a lot. Same thing with the Southern Police Institute at Louisville. Okay. Actually, the University of Louisville. Excellent school, really prestigious, very academic. From what I've been told, and people that have been to both, they say that those two schools are harder in the classroom. However, the FBI National Academy is probably, mainly because it's probably the most obvious one. Everybody knows it, right? Even the layman outside of law enforcement knows the FBI.
Right.
And probably even heard of the National Academy, if nothing other than to think, well, yeah, that's where the new agents go.
Right. Or even if they misunderstand, it still carries some prestige.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people even think that NA stands for new agent.
Right.
Not National Academy.
Right.
So I was offered to go to SPI, Southern Police Institute, or the NA. And I asked someone, I said, hey, what's your opinion? Which one should I go? And I said, well, let's tell you one thing here, that there are many, many police chiefs that have never been to SPI. A lot of people have been, but not a lot of police chiefs have been to SPI. There are hardly any police chiefs that haven't been to the NA. I said, there you go.
So if a city manager or whoever for a city is trying to hire a police chief, they're going to expect the applicants to all have the National Academy on their resume, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see, and I've started looking at them over the last year or so as to what they're looking for. One, because I'm getting close to that part of my career, but also, what are they looking for? NA, SPI? Are they not looking for any of that? What do they want? And almost all of them say FBI National Academy or equivalent.
Right. But that's the standard.
Yeah. But they don't list the other schools.
Right.
It's the NA or somebody like it.
Right.
Because, you're right. That's the standard. Everybody knows what that is.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you talking to me about this, sharing your experience at the National Academy.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. It was a great time. I would recommend anybody that gets the opportunity to go to absolutely do it. It went fast. I was glad to go, and I was glad to come home.
Excellent. Fantastic. I want to thank Ryan for taking the time to let me interview him about the National Academy. I watched his graduation online, and I'm really excited to see how the next stage of my friend's career will develop. You might have noticed that Ryan mentioned that his dad also went to the FBI National Academy some years ago. After the NA, Ron Miller went on to become a chief of police in 2 different cities and was then appointed by the president to be a U.S. Marshal. You can hear his story in episode 15, Marshals Explained. If you like what you heard here, please share this episode with a cop or someone who loves a cop. On the next episode of Hey Chaplain.
As a rookie cop, I had come into law enforcement and done a lot of stupid stuff with money, which qualified me as a rookie.
Yes.
I had managed to amass a debt load of $80,000 in debt.
Oh, no.
$21,000 of that was tied up in one car stereo system. Yes, one car.
Oh, my.
And so
it's just the stereo, right?
just the stereo.
Oh, no.
Started working overtime because I discovered that as a cop, you can work a crap load of overtime. And ended up digging myself into a hole of being stuck in the overtime cycle where if I didn't work my overtime, I didn't pay my bills. If you want to become wealthy in America, the number one way to accomplish that is by becoming and staying debt-free.
The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guests and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. Thank you for listening today, and as always, pray for peace in our city.